John Carter walked through the long hallway toward the council chamber. His black shoes clicked on the smooth crystal floor. He had been Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Council for 12 years. Today felt different. Today felt like the last. The chamber was huge. It could hold 10,000 beings from across the galaxy. The walls were made of living crystal that glowed with soft blue light. Above them, the ceiling showed the stars of the galaxy slowly turning. It was beautiful but cold. Carter took his seat at the small human section. Around him sat delegates from 12 alien species. The Zephyrians looked like giant jellyfish floating in the air. Their bodies glowed with changing colors. The Kriktar made clicking sounds as they talked to each other. They looked like large insects with 6 arms each. The hegemony delegates were tall and thin with gray skin. They never smiled. Lisa Brooks sat next to Carter. She was his aide and had worked with him for 5 years. She was young but smart. Today she looked worried. She held a tablet with important information. "The vote is in 30 minutes, she whispered to Carter. "Are you sure about this?" Carter nodded. He had been sure for weeks now, ever since they found the secret files. Ever since they learned the truth about how the council really worked. The Prime Minister of the Zephyrians who floated to the center of the chamber. His name was too hard for humans to say, so they called him Prime Zeph. His body glowed bright red as he began to speak. "We are here to discuss the human problem," Prime Zeph said. His voice came through the translator as smooth and cold. "For 47 years, humans have been part of our council, but they continue to cause trouble." Carter felt his hands tighten into fists. They called it the human problem. As if humans were something to be fixed or removed. "The humans refuse to let us mine their worlds," continued Prime Zeph. "They say these worlds are important to them. But these worlds have no cities. No people live there. It is wasteful to leave good minerals in the ground." Other delegates made sounds of agreement. The Kriktar clicked louder. The hegemony delegates nodded their long heads. Carter stood up. "May I speak?" "Of course, Ambassador Carter," Prime Zeph sighed. His colors changed to green, which meant he was being polite. But Carter knew it was fake politeness. "These worlds you want to mine are not empty," Carter said. "They are the homes of animals and plants that took millions of years to grow. They are beautiful places that our children will want to see. We cannot let you destroy them for a few years of mining." A Kriktar delegate stood up. She was tall and thin with 4 eyes. "Humans think like children," she said. "You care about pretty things instead of useful things. This is why your species will never be truly advanced." Carter felt anger rising in his chest. For 47 years he had listened to talk like this, always the same message. Humans were young, humans were stupid. Humans needed to be taught how to think properly. "We have given much to this council," Carter said. "Our doctors found cures for diseases that killed millions of your people. Our farmers taught you how to grow food on worlds that were empty before. Our engineers built the bridges and roads on dozens of council worlds." "Yes," said Prime Zeph, "and we are grateful. But gratitude does not change the fact that humans are not ready for full membership. You think with your feelings instead of your minds. You make decisions based on what you want instead of what is logical." Lisa Brooks touched Carter's arm. She held up her tablet. On it was a message from Earth. 3 more human colonies had been forced to leave their homes. Council ships had come and told them they had to go. The humans had followed the rules and left, but their homes were destroyed anyway. Carter looked at the message. Then he looked at Alan Hayes, who sat in the human science section. Hayes was old and gray, but his eyes were sharp. He had been the one to find the secret files. He had been the one to learn the truth. Hayes stood up and walked to the center of the chamber. He carried a small device that would show information to everyone in the room. "Before we continue," Hayes said, "I think everyone should see something interesting. Something we found in the old council files." The device lit up. Above them, the star ceiling changed. Instead of stars, they could see documents. Old documents with the official seals of the council. These files are from 300 years ago, Hayes said. They show how the council dealt with the Altarian people. Does anyone remember the Altarians? The chamber became quiet. Carter saw some delegates look uncomfortable. The Altarians were a young species, like humans, Hayes continued. They were good at making art and music. They were peaceful. They wanted to join the council and help make the galaxy better. More documents appeared above them. Carter read them with growing anger. But the council had other plans, Hayes said. The Altarians were good at making things that other species wanted, so the council made them work. They told the Altarians that young species had to earn their place. They made them give away their art and their music for free. Hayes pressed a button. New documents appeared. And when the Altarians asked for fair treatment, the council said they were not ready. They said the Altarians were too emotional, too childish. Sound familiar? Carter saw the truth in the documents. The same words that were used against humans had been used against the Altarians. The same excuses, the same lies. The Altarians worked for the council for 200 years, Hayes said. They built ships and made art and created beautiful things, but they were never allowed to be equal members. They were always treated as children who needed to be controlled. The chamber was completely silent now. Even the Kriktar had stopped clicking. And then one day the Altarians got tired of being treated badly. They asked for respect. They asked to be treated as equals. And do you know what happened? Hayes pressed another button. The final document appeared above them. The council destroyed them. They said the Altarians were dangerous rebels. They sent ships to Altarian worlds and bombed them until nothing was left. An entire species was murdered because they wanted to be treated fairly. Carter felt sick. He had known the council was unfair, but he had not known they were murderers. We found files for 6 other species, Hayes said. All young species, all treated the same way. All destroyed when they asked for respect. Hayes turned off the device. The stars returned to the ceiling, but they looked different now. They looked cold and empty. So now you know the truth, Hayes said. This is not a council, it is a prison. And humans are the latest prisoners. Carter stood up. He felt tired, but also free. The decision he had been thinking about for weeks was now easy. Earth withdraws from the Galactic Council, he said. We resign our membership immediately. The chamber exploded with noise. Delegates stood up and shouted. Some made angry sounds. Others seemed scared. You cannot do this, Prime Zeph said. His body was flashing bright red. You signed agreements, you made promises. We made promises to a council that was supposed to be fair, Carter said. We made promises to partners who were supposed to respect us. Those promises are broken. Carter walked toward the exit. Lisa, Brooks and Alan Hayes followed him. Behind them, the other human delegates also stood up to leave. You will regret this, called a hegemony delegate. You cannot survive without the council. You are too young and weak. Carter stopped at the chamber door. He turned back to look at the delegates one more time. Maybe we are young, he said. Maybe we are weak. But we are not slaves, and we are not victims. Earth is leaving, and we are taking our people with us. He walked out of the chamber. Behind him, the sound of arguing grew louder. The Galactic Council was already starting to fall apart. Carter did not look back. He had work to do. Humanity was free, but now they had to figure out how to survive on their own. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when you pushed humans too far. Ryan Mitchell stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance and watched the stars change color as his ship moved through hyperspace. Behind him, 50 human transport ships carried families away from their homes. They were leaving council space forever. Captain, we have a message from the Altair mining station, said Kelly Martinez. She was his communications officer and had been with him for 3 years. They are asking for help. Their main reactor is failing. Mitchell looked at the message on his screen. 6 months ago, he would have turned his ship around immediately to help. Human ships always helped when there was trouble. It was what humans did. Send them our best wishes, Mitchell said. But we cannot help them anymore. Kelly looked surprised. Sir, people might die if that reactor explodes. People might die, Mitchell agreed. But they made their choice when they treated us like children. We are not their emergency repair service anymore. The bridge was quiet. Everyone knew the captain was right, but it still felt strange. For 47 years, humans had been the ones who fixed problems in the galaxy. When ships broke down, they called human engineers. When people got sick, they called human doctors. When there were arguments, they called human negotiators. But now the humans were gone. Dr. Susan Wright sat in her small office on the transport ship Harmony. Her desk was covered with reports from across the galaxy. She had been the Council's top expert on quantum mechanics for 15 years. Now she was just another refugee. The numbers are getting worse, she told her assistant, Carl Johnson. The Hegemony's communication network crashed yesterday. Apparently, our networking protocols were the only thing keeping their systems connected. Carl looked at the report. How is that possible? Their technology is thousands of years ahead of ours. Their technology is advanced, Susan said, but it is also old. They built it so long ago that they forgot how it really works. They just know how to use it. When something breaks, they need someone who can think about the problem in a new way. She showed him another report. Look at this. The Kriktar colonies are reporting food shortages. Their automated farming systems are failing. But they have been farming for centuries, Carl said. They have been using the same farming programs for centuries, Susan corrected. Programs that were designed for their old worlds. When they moved to new planets, they needed human agricultural experts to modify the systems. Without us, they cannot adapt. Susan pulled up more reports on her computer. The news was the same everywhere. Systems that had worked perfectly for decades were suddenly failing. The reason was always the same. Humans had been quietly fixing problems that the other species did not even know existed on the planet Proxima. Commander Jake Sullivan watched alien workers try to repair a water treatment plant. The plant had been built by the Ethereals using their advanced technology, but when it broke down, they could not fix it. The problem is simple, Sullivan told his second-in-command, Lieutenant Amy Foster. The Ethereals designed the plant to work perfectly. They never thought about what would happen when it did not work perfectly. The alien workers were using their instruction manuals, but the manuals only explained how to operate the plant. They did not explain how to fix it when something went wrong. Human engineers wrote the repair procedures, Sullivan said. Human technicians trained the maintenance crews. Without us, they are helpless. Foster watched the aliens work. They were smart and skilled, but they were following rules instead of thinking about solutions. They never learned to improvise, she said. Exactly, Sullivan agreed. They never needed to. Their technology was so advanced that it rarely broke. When it did break, they had humans to fix it. Across the galaxy, the same story was repeating. On trading stations, without human logistics coordinators, ships were delivering goods to the wrong places. On mining worlds, without human supervisors, alien workers were following outdated procedures that wasted resources. Captain Betty Foster received a priority message as her ship, the New Hope, approached the Outer Rim. The message was from Earth Command. All ships report to Kepler Station, the message said. Emergency meeting in 12 hours. At Kepler Station, the human fleet commanders gathered to share information. The news was worse than anyone had expected. The Zephyrian currency collapsed. This morning, reported Commander Chris Parker, their entire economy was based on trade calculations that human economists had been managing for decades. The hegemony is facing riots on 3 worlds, added Captain Nancy Clark. Their government bureaucracy cannot function without human civil servants. Admiral Steve Rogers looked tired. He had been coordinating the human evacuation, and the stress was showing. It seems we were more important to their civilization than we realized. Or maybe they were less capable than they claimed, suggested Commander Parker. The reports kept coming. The Zarian collective, who shared thoughts through their hive mind, were having trouble making decisions. Human mediators had been helping them resolve conflicts between different parts of their collective consciousness. The most shocking report comes from the Ethereals, said Dr. Helen Carter, who had been monitoring Council communications. They are losing access to their own technology. Apparently their psychic research required human minds to work properly. The room fell silent. Everyone knew the Ethereals were the most advanced species in the galaxy. Their technology was like magic to most other species. If they were having problems, the situation was worse than anyone had imagined. What about military threats? Asked Admiral Rogers. The Council is mobilizing their fleets, reported Captain Mitchell. But they are having coordination problems. Human officers have been serving as liaisons between different species' military forces, so they cannot work together effectively, Rogers said. Not without us, Mitchell confirmed. As the meeting continued, a pattern became clear. The Galactic Council had become dependent on humans in ways that no one had fully understood. Humans had been the glue that held galactic civilization together. They treated us like junior partners, said Commander Foster. But we were doing the jobs that kept everything running. The question now, said Admiral Rogers, is what happens next? Do we try to help them, or do we let them figure it out on their own? The debate was intense. Some commanders wanted to offer assistance. Others believed the Council species needed to learn to be independent. They had 47 years to treat us as equals, said Captain Mitchell. They chose not to. Now they can face the consequences. But people are dying, argued Dr. Carter. Innocent people who had nothing to do with the Council's decisions. People die when governments make bad choices, replied Commander Parker. That is not our responsibility anymore. As the meeting ended, the commanders agreed on one thing. Humanity would focus on building their own future. The Council species would have to solve their own problems, but even as they made this decision, reports continued to arrive. The galaxy was falling apart faster than anyone had expected. Trade routes were collapsing. Governments were failing. Technology was breaking down. The Council had thought they were the advanced civilizations teaching primitive humans how to live in the galaxy. But the truth was becoming clear. Without humans, the galaxy could not function, and this was only the beginning. 3 months had passed since humanity left the Galactic Council. Betty Foster stood on the observation deck of New Geneva Station and watched construction robots build humanity's first independent colony. The work was going well, better than, actually. Without Council regulations slowing them down, human engineers were creating things faster than ever before. Commander, you need to see this, called Chris Parker from the communications center. He was holding a data pad with reports from their spy network. Even after leaving the Council, humans still had friends in many places. Betty walked over and read the report. Her eyes grew wide. The Zephyrian government fell? Yesterday, Chris confirmed, their parliament could not agree on anything. Without human mediators, they just argued until the whole system collapsed. Betty shook her head. The Zephyrians had ruled their sector for over 1,000 years. They were supposed to be master politicians. What about the hegemony? Worse, Chris said. Their military is strong, but they cannot run a government. Human civil servants had been managing their entire bureaucracy. Now they cannot even collect taxes properly. The reports kept coming, each one more shocking than the last. The Kriktar hive mind was fragmenting. Individual Kriktar were starting to think for themselves instead of following the collective, without human psychologists helping them maintain their mental connections. Their entire society was breaking apart. Dr. Nancy Clark was working in the research lab when she received the most surprising report of all. She had been studying Council technology for years, trying to understand how it worked. Now she was learning why it had stopped working. The Ethereals are losing their powers, she told her assistant, Paul Martinez. Their psychic abilities are weakening. How is that possible? Paul asked. Their mental powers are natural, not technological. That's what we thought, Nancy said. But it turns out their abilities were somehow enhanced by contact with human minds. When they worked with human scientists, their psychic research improved. When they mediated disputes with human diplomats present, their mental powers were stronger. Paul looked confused. Are you saying humans are psychic too? No, Nancy said. But human minds work differently than any other species. We think in ways that complement their abilities. Without us, they are losing capabilities they have had for centuries. The implications were staggering. The most advanced species in the galaxy was becoming weaker without human contact. On the bridge of the UES horizon, Admiral Kate Johnson studied tactical reports from across the galaxy. The military situation was deteriorating rapidly. Council fleets were mobilizing, but they were having serious problems. The Hegemony's Fifth Fleet attacked a Zephyrian trade convoy yesterday, reported her intelligence officer, Lieutenant Helen Rogers. They thought it was carrying weapons, but it was actually carrying medical supplies. Friendly fire? Johnson asked. Worse, communication breakdown. Without human liaison officers, the different species cannot coordinate their actions. They are literally fighting each other by accident. Johnson pulled up a star map showing Council fleet movements. The pattern was chaos. Ships were moving in all directions without any clear strategy. Some fleets were attacking their own allies. Others were completely lost. They built their military around the idea that all species would work together, Johnson said. But they cannot work together without us. The economic collapse was even worse than the military problems. Commander Alan Hayes was reviewing trade reports when he noticed something remarkable. Entire sectors of the galaxy were reverting to primitive barter systems. The Zarian Collective just abandoned their currency, he told his staff. They are trading raw materials for food like ancient tribes. How did this happen so fast? Asked his aide Susan Wright. Human economists had been managing the complexity, Hayes explained. Galactic trade involves thousands of species with different needs and different resources. The calculations are incredibly complicated. Without human experts to run the models, the whole system is collapsing. But the most dramatic change was happening on individual worlds. Dr. Mike Thompson had been monitoring Council planets through long-range sensors. What he saw was unprecedented. Technological regression, he reported, to the colonial leadership. They are losing the ability to maintain their own technology. What do you mean? Asked Commander Foster. Their machines are breaking down and they cannot fix them, Thompson explained. They know how to use their technology, but they do not understand how it works. Human engineers have been doing all the maintenance and repairs. The examples were everywhere. On hegemony worlds, transportation systems were failing. On Zephyrian planets, manufacturing plants were shutting down. On Kryktar colonies, even basic life support systems were starting to malfunction. They are becoming dependent on older, simpler technology, Thompson continued. Technology they can understand and maintain themselves. Meanwhile, in the Outer Rim, human colonies were experiencing a technological boom. Free from Council restrictions, human inventors were creating new solutions to old problems. Dr. Lisa Mitchell was leading a team that had just developed a new type of faster-than-light engine. It's 30% more efficient than anything the Council ever built, she told the Colonial Assembly. And it's easier to maintain. How is that possible? Asked Governor Ryan Carter. Their technology is thousands of years more advanced than ours. Their technology is old, Mitchell corrected. They stopped innovating centuries ago because they thought they had reached perfection, but we never stopped learning and improving. The contrast was becoming clear. While Council civilization was falling apart, human civilization was growing stronger. The species that had been treated as children were proving to be the most adaptable and capable. Captain Jake Sullivan was commanding a patrol ship near the border when he encountered a group of refugee vessels. They were not human ships. They were Altarian survivors. We heard that humans had left the Council, said their leader, a being whose name translated as Harmony Singer. We wanted to ask for sanctuary. Sullivan was surprised. I thought the Altarians were extinct. The Council tried to destroy us, Harmony Singer explained. But some of us escaped and hid in the outer systems. We have been waiting for someone to challenge the Council's power. Sullivan looked at the small fleet of ancient ships There were maybe 10,000 Altarians left from a species that had once numbered in the billions. "You are welcome to join us," Sullivan said. "But why did you come to us?" "Because you did what we could not," Harmony Singer replied. "You stood up to the Council and survived. You showed that it is possible to be free." As the Altarian ships joined the human convoy, Sullivan realized that something important was happening. Humanity was not just leaving the Council. They were becoming the center of a new kind of civilization. Reports continued to arrive from Council space. The situation was getting worse every day. Governments were collapsing. Technology was failing. Species that had coexisted for centuries were now fighting each other, but in the Outer Rim, something new was being born. Human colonies were not just surviving, they were thriving. And they were being joined by other species who wanted to be part of something different. The galaxy was changing. The old order was dying and a new one was taking its place. And at the center of it all were the humans who had been told they were too young and too primitive to matter. The Council was learning a hard lesson. There was a difference between being old and being wise, and there was a difference between being advanced and being capable. Humanity was about to show them what real strength looked like. The emergency council meeting was held on Nexus Prime, the most heavily defended world in Council space. Prime Minister Zeph floated in the center of the chamber, his body flashing angry red colors. Around him, the surviving Council delegates looked desperate and afraid. "The humans must be stopped," Zeph announced. "Their rebellion is destroying everything we have built." Commander Kate Johnson watched the meeting through a hidden spy drone. Human intelligence networks were still active throughout Council space. What she saw made her angry and worried at the same time. "They are planning something big," she told Admiral Steve Rogers over the secure communication link. "The Council is mobilizing every ship they have left." "How many ships?" Rogers asked. 3,000 vessels from 6 different species, Johnson replied, "the largest fleet in galactic history." But Rogers was not impressed. 3,000 ships that cannot work together. 3,000 ships with crews that do not trust each other. The Council's plan was simple and desperate. They would attack every known human colony at the same time. Without humans to cause problems, galactic civilization could return to normal, but they made one critical mistake. They trusted the Void Hunters. Dr. Helen Carter was working late in her research lab when her instruments detected something impossible. Energy signatures that did not match any known technology were appearing at the edge of the galaxy. "Paul, come look at this," she called to her assistant, Paul Martinez. "These readings make no sense." The energy patterns were unlike anything in the galactic database. They seemed to consume light itself, creating areas of absolute darkness in space. "Could it be a natural phenomenon?" Paul asked. "No," Helen said firmly. "This is artificial, this is technology. But not technology from any species we know." Within hours, the truth became clear. Dark ships were emerging from the void between galaxies. Ships that seemed to eat starlight and bend space around them. The Void Hunters had returned. Captain Lisa Mitchell was on patrol near the Kepler system when the first reports came in. Council worlds on the galactic rim were going silent, not destroyed. Not conquered, simply gone as if they had never existed. "This is different from anything we have seen before," she told her crew. "The Void Hunters are not just attacking. They are erasing entire star systems." The Council had made contact with the Void Hunters months ago. In their desperation to defeat humanity, they had offered the ancient enemy a deal. Help destroy the human colonies, and the Council would give them access to the galaxy's resources. But the Void Hunters had their own plans. Admiral Rogers received an emergency message from Earth Command. "All human fleets are ordered to defensive positions around our colonies. Do not engage Council forces." Repeat, do not engage Council forces. "Sir," asked Captain Johnson, "what about the Void Hunter threat?" Rogers studied the tactical display. Council fleets were moving toward human space, but behind them, dark ships were consuming entire sectors. "Let the Council deal with their own mess. We protect our people first?" But that plan changed when the refugees started arriving. Commander Jake Sullivan was patrolling the border when his sensors detected a massive fleet approaching. He prepared for battle, but then his communications officer spoke up. "Sir, we are receiving surrender signals. These are not warships. These are civilian transports." On his screen, Sullivan could see hundreds of ships carrying millions of beings from dozens of species. They were fleeing from the Void Hunters, and they were asking humans for protection. "Please," came a message from the lead ship. "We have nowhere else to go. The Void Hunters destroyed our worlds." "They are consuming everything?" Sullivan looked at his crew. Everyone was thinking the same thing. These were the same beings who had treated humans badly for decades, but they were also innocent people who needed help. "All ships, this is Commander Sullivan. You are welcome in human space. Follow our escorts to safety." The decision to help the refugees was not popular with everyone. At the emergency leadership meeting on New Geneva Station, there was heated debate. "Why should we help them?" asked Commander Chris Parker. "They treated us like children for 47 years. "Because it is the right thing to do," replied Dr. Nancy Clark. "We do not help people because they deserve it. We help them because we can." Governor Betty Foster listened to both sides. "The question is not whether we should help. The question is whether we can help. The Void Hunters are more dangerous than anything we have ever faced." The debate ended when Dr. Helen Carter shared her research findings. The Void Hunter technology operates on quantum principles that should be impossible. But there is something strange about it, something familiar. She showed them the energy patterns on her screens. These quantum signatures are similar to patterns we see in human brain activity. Specifically, the parts of the brain that handle creativity and problem solving. "What are you saying?" asked Admiral Rogers. "I think human minds might be naturally resistant to Void Hunter technology," Helen explained. "Our thought patterns might be able to counter their quantum effects." The implications were staggering. Humanity might be the galaxy's only hope against the Void Hunters. Captain Mike Thompson was commanding the defense of the new Terra colony when the first Void Hunter ships appeared. They moved like living shadows, bending space around them. Traditional weapons had no effect. "All ships, concentrate fire on the lead vessel," Thompson ordered. The human fleet opened fire, but their energy beams simply disappeared into the dark. Ships, it was like shooting into a black hole. "Sir, weapons are ineffective," reported his tactical officer. Amy Watson. Thompson watched the enemy ships approach. They were beautiful and terrifying at the same time. But as he studied their movement patterns, he noticed something interesting. "They are moving in perfect formation," he said. "Too perfect. There is no variation, no adaptation. Is that important?" Watson asked. "Everything natural has some randomness," Thompson explained. "But these ships move like they are following a program, like they cannot change their behavior." Thompson had an idea. "All ships, break formation, move randomly. Do not follow any pattern." The human fleet scattered in all directions. Some ships moved up, others down. Some accelerated, others slowed down. There was no logic to their movements. The effect on the Void Hunters was immediate. Their perfect formations began to break apart. Their ships started moving in different directions as if they were confused. "It is working," Watson said with excitement. "They cannot predict our movements." More than that, Thompson realized. They cannot handle unpredictability. Their quantum technology is designed for order and logic. Chaos confuses them. The discovery spread quickly through the human fleet. The key to fighting the Void Hunters was not better weapons or stronger shields. It was human creativity and unpredictability, but even as humans learned to fight the enemy, the situation in Council space was getting worse. Entire sectors were being consumed. Billions of beings were dying or fleeing their homes, and the Council fleet, meant to attack human colonies, was caught between the advancing Void Hunters and the human defensive positions. Prime Minister Zeph sent a desperate message to the human leadership. "We request immediate assistance. The Void Hunters have betrayed us. They are destroying everything. Admiral Rogers read the message with mixed feelings. Part of him wanted to let the Council face the consequences of their actions. But another part remembered that billions of innocent lives were at stake. "Send a reply," he told his communications officer. "Tell them we will help, but from now on we work as equals. No more Council hierarchy, no more human submission." "And, if they refuse?" the officer asked. Rogers looked at the tactical display showing the advancing darkness. "Then they can face the Void Hunters alone." The galaxy was about to learn whether cooperation was stronger than domination, and humanity was about to discover if their greatest weakness could become their greatest strength. The Battle of Galactic Center began at dawn on a Tuesday. Admiral Sam Harris stood on the bridge of the UES Victory and watched the largest fleet in galactic history prepare for the fight of their lives. Human ships flew alongside Zephyrion vessels. Kryktar fighters moved in formation with hegemony cruisers. Species that had been enemies for centuries now worked together under human command. "All ships report ready," announced Captain Lisa Mitchell from the communications center. "The combined fleet numbers 4,000 vessels." Harris nodded. It was an impressive force, but the enemy was unlike anything they had ever faced. The Void Hunter Armada stretched across space like a living shadow. Their ships consumed light itself, creating holes of absolute darkness in the starfield. "Remember," Harris said over the fleet-wide channel, "do not try to fight them the old way. Use chaos, use randomness, be unpredictable." The first wave of Void Hunter ships moved forward with perfect precision. They advanced in geometric patterns, their quantum weapons reaching out to dissolve matter at the atomic level. Captain Jake Sullivan commanded a mixed squadron of human and alien ships. "All units, scatter formation, random vectors. Do not let them predict your movements." His ships spread out in all directions. A human destroyer dove toward a planet. A Zephyrian cruiser spun in wild circles. A Kryktar fighter moved backward while firing forward. The effect was immediate. The Void Hunters slowed their advance, their formations wavering as they tried to calculate intercepts for targets that moved without logic. "It is working," called Dr. Nancy Clark from her science vessel. "Their quantum computers cannot handle true randomness." But the real breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Dr. Robert Hayes had been studying captured Void Hunter technology when he made a discovery that changed everything. "Captain, I need to speak with the fleet commander immediately," Hayes said over the emergency channel. "I know how their technology works." Hayes was patched through to Admiral Harris. "Sir, the Void Hunters do not think the way we do. Their minds are purely logical. They see the universe as a set of equations to be solved. How does that help us?" Harris asked while watching the ships dodge dark energy beams. "Human creativity is the opposite of pure logic," Hayes explained. "When we imagine something new, when we make art or music or tell stories, we create quantum patterns that their technology cannot process." Harris understood immediately. "You are saying our imagination confuses their weapons?" "More than that," Hayes said excitedly. "I think human creativity can actually damage their ships. Their quantum shields are designed to block logical attacks. But creativity is not logical." The test came when Colonel Amy Watson led an assault on the Void Hunter command ship. Her squadron included artists and musicians from the refugee fleet. As they approached the massive dark vessel, Watson gave an unusual order. "All pilots, think about something beautiful. Remember a song that made you happy. Imagine a story you loved as a child." The human pilots began to think about art and music and poetry. The alien pilots, working alongside humans for months, had learned to appreciate human creativity. They thought about human songs they had heard and human stories they had been told. The effect was remarkable. As the mixed squadron approached the Void Hunter ship, its dark shields began to flicker. Points of light appeared on its surface like stars being born. "The shields are failing," Watson reported. "Human imagination is creating quantum interference." The squadron opened fire. Their weapons, backed by the creative energy of human minds, pierced the Void Hunter defenses. The massive ship shuddered and began to break apart. Across the battlefield, the lesson spread quickly. Ships with human crews began to succeed where pure alien forces had failed. The key was not better technology or stronger weapons. The key was human creativity working alongside alien capabilities. Captain Mike Thompson found himself commanding a hegemony battle group when their admiral was killed. The gray-skinned warriors looked to him for orders, their ancient pride forgotten. In the face of extinction, "Sir, what are your commands?" asked the hegemony captain through the translator. Thompson looked at the tactical display. The logical approach would be to form defensive lines and fight a careful retreat. But logic was exactly what the Void Hunters expected. "We attack," Thompson said. "All ships full speed toward their center. No formation, no plan, we make it up as we go." The hegemony ships hesitated. Their entire military tradition was based on careful planning and perfect execution. But they followed the human captain into chaos. The result was spectacular. The Void Hunter fleet, designed to counter logical military tactics, could not adapt to the random assault. Ships appeared where they were not expected. Attacks came from impossible angles. Human-led forces struck and vanished like ghosts, but the true victory came from an even more surprising source. As the battle raged, the refugee civilians began to help. Kriktar children, inspired by human fairy tales, began to imagine new endings to old stories. Zephyrian artists, working with human musicians, created songs that had never existed before. Dr. Helen Carter monitored the quantum effects from her science ship. "Admiral, you need to see this. The civilian ships are generating massive creative energy. They are actually healing the damage the Void Hunters caused to space itself." Harris watched in amazement as star systems that had been consumed by darkness began to reappear. The quantum effects of millions of minds thinking creatively were reversing the Void Hunter technology. "They are not just helping us win," Harris realized. "They are undoing the damage." The final assault on the Void Hunter mothership was led by John Carter himself. The former ambassador had insisted on commanding the diplomatic vessel that would deliver the final blow. "This is for the Altarians," Carter said as his ship approached the massive enemy vessel. "And for every species the Council destroyed," but Carter was not alone. Harmony Singer, the Altarian survivor, stood beside him on the bridge. Together, they began to tell the story of their peoples. The story of species that had been oppressed but had never given up hope. The story itself became a weapon. As Carter and Harmony Singer spoke of courage and freedom and the dream of a better galaxy, their words created quantum resonances that tore through the Void Hunter. Ship like fire through paper, the mothership exploded in a burst of light that could be seen across the galaxy. With it died the last of the Void Hunter fleet. In the aftermath, as rescue ships searched for survivors and repair crews began fixing damaged vessels, Admiral Harris received a message from Prime Minister Zeph. "Admiral Harris, the Galactic Council, formally requests to negotiate a new alliance with humanity." Harris smiled. "Tell the Prime Minister that there will be no Galactic Council, but there can be a Galactic Alliance, a partnership of equals." 6 months later, Ambassador John Carter stood in a new chamber on New Geneva Station. Around him sat representatives from every species in the galaxy, but this time no one sat higher than anyone else. All chairs were at the same level. "The charter of the Galactic Alliance is simple," Carter announced. "Every species contributes their strengths. Every species shares in the benefits. No one rules over anyone else." The vote was unanimous. For the first time in galactic history, all species would work together as equals. Dr. Susan Wright watched the ceremony from the observation deck. Beside her stood Harmony Singer and representatives from a dozen other species that had been thought extinct. "We did not just save the galaxy," Wright said. "We changed it," Harmony Singer's translation device hummed softly. "The humans showed us something important. They showed us that being different is not weakness, it is strength." As the new alliance began its work, human colonies continued to grow throughout the galaxy. But now they were joined by colonies of other species who wanted to learn human ways. Art and music and stories spread from world to world, creating a renaissance of creativity. The age of council domination was over. In its place rose something new and beautiful. A galaxy where difference was celebrated, where creativity was valued, and where no one had to submit to anyone else. The day humanity left the Galactic Council, everything had fallen apart. But from the ruins they had built something infinitely better. A future where every species could reach for the stars together.